Are you the most productive person among your coworkers, friends, and family? Do you want to be? Or do you want to find and engage with new friends who use productivity methods and tools that you do too? Personal Productivity Club is a digital community of personal productivity enthusiasts, experts, technologists, and creators. Visit www.personalproductivity.club to learn more. Personal Productivity Club is free to join and accessible on the web, Android, iOS, and iPad. We have events and virtual meetups throughout the month, as well as groups and courses dedicated to productivity, home and office organization, and technology topics, including GTD, Todoist, Evernote, a virtual co-working space, and even a virtual productivity book club. To share your experiences of personal and professional growth, head to www.personalproductivity.club and join today.
Perfect. So welcome to come and join a conversation with similarities and difference between Remember the Milk and Todoist with Dr. Frank Buck and myself. My name is Augusto Pinaud, and welcome everybody. We are recording the event, and we will be posting later inside of Personal Productivity Club as well as other places. So to start, good. To start, let me introduce Dr. Frank Buck. And most people are overwhelmed by the amount of paper and digital information in their life. Frank Buck makes organization easy so you can increase productivity, decrease stress, and enjoy life. Global gurus rank Frank #1 in the world in the time management category for 2019, 20, and 21. His career path took him from band director to principal to central office administrator, and now to productivity coach and speaker. So welcome, Dr. Buck.
It is a pleasure to be here, and I appreciate you doing this event with me.
And then me, my name is Augusto Pinaud, and I'm a bilingual productivity and technology coach. I'm also a NOSBI Teams specialist, and I work with small business owners, executive and professionals on productivity, technology, process improvement, and I use a variety of productivity technologies, and some of them we are covering today. So why this? Why do we plan this event? And the reason was simple. Todoist came with a new release of free version. They changed their free plan that start a series of conversations with Dr. Buck about the difference and the things. He knows that I work on Todoist. He works on Remember the Milk. So we thought after a couple of discussions, so we think this may be useful for other people. So actually, Dr. Buck thought that, and I followed trend with him. And the idea was to, hey, let's do an event in which we can cover. So what we discover after we start doing this is there was a lot to cover.
Yeah, more than one session, easily. Yeah.
So what we decide is, okay, let's pick what we think are the 4 things that are going to help the most. And if people want us to go more, we are happy to continue and doing another session on how are the difference and all that. So if you get benefit out of this on the live version or the recorded one, and you want us to continue, let us know so we can organize and plan the next one.
And the kinds of things that you're interested in, if you're already a user of one program or the other. So we tailor this to meet your needs. Yeah, when I got this email in my email inbox from Todoist, because I've got a little demo account, I played around with it, but Todoist was really nothing that I felt like I could recommend as far as the free plan, because there were 2 things that we'll talk about tonight that it lacked. Well, this email talks about what's being added, and those 2 things are among what they're now adding into their free plan. So Todoist suddenly became one of those programs that I could, without reservation, recommend the free program even to people, that it would meet their needs.
Yes, and I've been at Todoist. I changed from OmniFocus, who was my application for, I don't know, 2008 maybe, up to 2020. So for 12 years, I was an OmniFocus person, and I changed to Todoist, and I will talk more about why today. And I went directly from the Pro plan, so I didn't suffer the limitations of the free. But when I saw the email, I was really excited because it really changed. Especially now makes you can test it and experience some of the powerful things that Todoist has, even if you decide to keep on the free plan, because that's what meets your needs. So tonight we decide to cover 4 of those elements: the files uploads, comments, especially comments when you share or delegate a task or a project, or when you are not delegating them, a little bit about filters, and finally add task via emails. Why? Because we consider those were 4 of the things where the comparison was going to be fun and where we could help the most. So let's begin with files uploads. And what we're going to do is try to keep it simple. We are going to share a couple of screenshots. On the left of the screen, you will see Temu, or Remember the Milk. On the right of the screen, you will see Todoist. And so let's begin with adding files and the difference. And I'm going to let Dr. Buck explain us what is that, or how that happened in Remember the Milk, and then I will cover what happened in Todoist. So the idea with this is that if you use one or the other, you could really get a good grasp of what are the difference and then things that are similar between one and the other.
Okay. Well, when you sit down to do a task, a lot of times there is a digital document located somewhere that you want to be able to reference when you do that particular task. So instead of wondering, where is it? How do I get to it? When I sit down to do that task, I want to have those documents at hand. So the file upload allows me to do that. Now, if I'm you have to have the Pro plan for the file upload per se. So on the left-hand side of your screen, you see what it would look like in Remember the Milk, where if I'm on a task, I can click Add Field, Attachment, and then what it does, it doesn't upload the file to Remember the Milk. It puts it in either Dropbox or Google Drive, and it's your choice of which, and associates it within that task. So I've got a choice. Maybe something's on my desktop. Okay, upload it to Dropbox or upload it to Google Drive, that I can trash the one that was sitting on my desktop. Or if it's already somewhere in Google Drive or in Dropbox, it associates it with that task. Now, what if I'm not on the Pro plan? What if I'm on the free plan? There is a little workaround. Just about any digital document is going to have a URL associated with it, right? So one thing that you also see in that same little diagram, see where it says notes? With the free plan for Remember the Milk, you have a little note section, or as many note sections as you need. You can just copy the URL from that document, paste it right in there on the front end while you're thinking about it. And then when it comes time to do the task, the little note section, there's the link to the one or more digital documents that you're going to need as you complete that task. So that's how it's handled on Remember the Milk. Now, Augusto, what about Todoist? How does Todoist handle the file uploads?
So Todoist do it a little different. And now on the free plan, you are going to get up to 5 megabytes of files, because one of the things Todoist do is they actually put the file. Can you work into getting the link in the same way you did with Dr. Buck? Of course, you will have that comment section that Remember the Milk called notes. Here are called comments, but you will be able to put the link. But otherwise, you will be able to upload from your computer, Google Drive. Even if you have an Android or an iPhone, it will come, the appropriate local storage in the device, and you will be able to do it. On the free plan, now you have 5 megabytes. And on the paid plan, that is, I think it's $3 a month or something like that, you get 100 megabytes. I have not yet reached mine, and I attached a bunch of things. And I really like the fact that they attach the file in Todoist. That's something that I particularly like. So for me, is one thing that I prefer to have that file attached at the link, especially because if I'm not in my office, and yes, I understand on the last 18 months we have been in the office, but I used to move out in the world, and that was an advantage. But again, it's one of the different. So going next to the comments, and on the comments, we decide to create a call Bob and show a little bit of how we work into this and a couple more things. So again, I'm going to let Dr. Buck tell us how that work into the Remember the Milk before we jump into Todoist.
Okay, so I need to call Bob. I don't trust myself to remember that, so I create a little task in Remember the Milk to call Bob. But there are about 5 things that I want to talk to Bob about. Where did I write those down? So in Remember the Milk, you have a little note section, and you actually have as many as you need. When you fill up one, another one automatically appears. So I can just click in that little note section and add as many things as I need to there. And then when I sit down to do the task, I'm seeing whatever is in my little note. Now, let's say I call Bob, I don't get him, I get his voicemail. And so what I'd like to do is somehow document that I attempted to call him. Having a background as a school principal, there's so many times where you want to document that you tried to call somebody and what date and what time that happened. So I call Bob, I get his voicemail. I can just click in the little note section and say, left a message on his voicemail. And if you'll look very closely at that note, you'll see that it date and time stamps it for you. So when Bob says, gosh, I hadn't heard from you, then I can just go to that task and say, well, I tried to call you this date, this time, and I left a voicemail. This date, this time, I left a message with somebody named Bill. Is that your son or whatever? So you've got great documentation in that little note section, or comments as they call it in Todoist. And this is one of those 2 things where I could not recommend Todoist before. This was in their paid plan. This was not in their free plan. So to me, it was like having a car where the steering wheel was extra. I've got to have that little note section so that when I sit down to do a task, the information that I want to have at hand is right there for me. So comments in Todoist. Augusto, how does that work?
So before I go into the Todoist, Katie had raises her hand. Do you want to ask your question, Katie, or it was answered already?
I was just trying to parse the comment you made about how you like to be able to drag and drop your files right in instead of a link, as if that meant you could access them offline when you weren't in your office. But if you're on your app, you're on the Wi-Fi, you can access your files in your drive. So really, it's the same thing.
Correct. If you have connection, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really is just like having the link there. But again, the advantage is you're not having to go, where did I have that document? Where do I need to navigate to get to that document?
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
The other thing Ray mentioned on the chat, I advocate to never upload files to any task management, attach them, whatever is Todoist, Remember the Milk, centralize your documents or in proper folders, like Google Drive, OneDrive, Dropbox, etc. It is easy to have multiple files, different versions floating around the system if you attach them instead of the link.
It's easier, it's more secure, just a better way to do it.
So in the Todoist, you will see exactly the same thing. And actually, you see the example, leave the message for Bob, and then, these are the issues I want to talk about Bob. And I found something that has not bothered me until I start working with Dr. Buck in this project in the Todoist. Todoist organize those comments from the first comment to the last comment. So the least recent to the most recent. While Remember the Milk do it exactly on the positive, on the opposite way. I could not find a way after we saw this screenshot to fix it, to put or tell Todoist to just show me my comments in the opposite way. Show me the newest on the top and the oldest in the bottom. And so I was joking with Dr. Buck as we were doing this. I said, great, you just give me something to complain now about Todoist, because I really want this to be in the opposite way. I think it's much powerful to have it that the one on the top is the last comment that you make instead of the way that is on Todoist. But pay attention to that difference if that will bother you or something that will matter to you.
Good.
So the next thing is what happened when I want to give comments and I want to notify people of those comments, or I want to make people responsible. So, or assign tasks more than make them responsible. So how that works on the Remember the Milk side, Dr. Buck?
We are a social people. We work together. And for, generations, for hundreds of years, we passed little notes back and forth to each other and said, now, are you going to handle this? You're going to handle this. And today we're doing still too much of that. Think about how much interaction happens between husband and wife, or in a school setting, principal and assistant principal, or the principal and the school secretary. Are you going to do this? Could you make this phone call back and forth? And we got these little pieces of paper all around. What if we could just put something in our digital list for ourselves, or put something in our digital list that's being assigned to someone else? Both of these programs have it in the free plan. So on the left side, I created a task that just said sample task to delete. And just as I'm typing that task, I can just hit a little icon, and there'll be a list of people that are in my Remember the Milk contacts. These will be people that use Remember the Milk and that I've added in the program as people I can delegate to. I just pick their name from a list, hit add task. The other person, first of all, gets an email that just basically says, hey, a task has been delegated to you. And Remember the Milk, they also see a little bell that'll have a little red dot on it, alerting them that the task has been delegated. They just click and say accept, and now it's on their list instead of me giving them a little piece of paper that they have to turn around and hand copy in there. Then the beauty of this is not only can I see what I've delegated to other people, but I can go into that comment and I can go into that task and I can put something in the notes section and the other person sees it. The other person can go in and put something in a note section and I can see it. So instead of us emailing back and forth about that particular task, we can actually handle our communication about the task within the task. And so it just cuts down on all this other clutter. So Augusto, how does that happen in Todoist?
Yeah, and that was one of the things we did in this. Dr. Buck created a project called Remember the Milk Todoist series. Remember the Milk, I did the same thing on Todoist, and we were sending double messages for this. So in the case of Todoist, you need to share the project in order to assign a task to somebody. And that is one thing that differs with Remember the Milk, where you can assign a task to a person who has nothing to do with the project. That said, when you're part of the project on Todoist, now I can assign you a task, or I can make a comment, and I can even decide, okay, I want this comment that I'm going to make to, or get a notification to everybody in this project, or just a group of people inside of that project. So when you add, like in this case, I wrote, I can choose to notify no one or just part of the team. If I click on that bell, it's going to give me everybody that belongs to that team, and I will be able to choose in each comment who will get the notification, or nobody needs to get the notification. I'm just updating information. Nobody needs to do something. That's something I particularly like, because not every comment that I make on a task, I want the person necessarily to be notified. Sometimes it's just I'm updating information that may be relevant later. But in other cases, I want a response. So I want to make sure that the person gets notified. So it's a matter of what your choice is and how powerful you want to make that one. So
yeah. And then over these next several slides, Augusto mentioned that just as an experiment, I went into Remember the Milk. He went into Todoist, and it's like we pretty much planned out this project. What you're seeing tonight, planned that out in Remember the Milk, planned it out in Todoist. So kind of doing double duty, so that each of us could see what the other is seeing in each program. So this particular screenshot, one of the things that we did right off the bat was I created a Google Doc and I created a Google Slides presentation that we could collaborate on. Well, when I sit down to work on that, I don't want to have to remember where is that, like we talked about before. I want to link to it. So in this task, I just put, as soon as I created that Google Doc, I just grabbed the URL and threw it in here. And same thing for the Google Slides presentation. Just grab the link, threw it into the notes section of this particular task so that when I sit down to do the task, I'm one click away from the doc or the slides. And then Augusto in Todoist.
So in Todoist, you can do the same. You can copy that link, or if you do attach, it will upload the document. As you can see in the right of your screen, it uploads those 2 PDFs. So if you are collaborating the document or that document can change or will change, I recommend you put the link. If it's a document that is not going to change at all, that's now a decision. As we hear early, Ray recommends not to upload anything, keep it on somewhere where it's file inappropriate. So Miss Katie, you have a question.
I'm the noisy student.
No, I love that.
We
so
love
please don't stop. You are already in the principal office or soon to be principal office, so please don't stop.
Every time you said in Todoist, you can add a note, or sometimes you want to ask a particular person a question. And so, but in both of them, every time you add a note, does the whole team get notified, or are you able to just add things and then people go in and look at all the notes? So are you constantly dinging other people every time you add a note or change something or write a note to yourself in either one of these?
Well, it's whoever, Remember the Milk, it's whoever you've delegated that task to. So it would be like the 2 of you.
Okay.
So there might be a number of tasks in that project, but if I've delegated, say, several of them to Augusto, when I make a comment about one of those tasks, I see it and he sees it, but not everybody on the team who may be handling other tasks in that project.
So on Todoist, I understood. I heard him say there you make a team and then you can talk to individuals. I didn't see over here and Remember the Milk that you made a team, or that you are just assigning tasks. Like, so you said that you don't need to share a task to assign a task in Remember the Milk, which is good. But can you make a team, or does that just mean you share it with everybody you want to work on it with?
Well, I mean, you could have a team. Remember the Milk's not really going to recognize those people as a team. It'll just see what has been delegated, to various people. And I've never worked with assigning a task to more than one person. Because kind of one of those things that's everybody's responsibility becomes nobody's responsibility. I like to really get things granular enough that this particular thing is either something I'm handling or you're handling, and we might both want to talk about it, but one or the other of us has the responsibility for completing that little subtask.
So, so Remember the Milk is less of a committee type of task assigner, or the whole committee can see what's going on. And Todoist, you could have a committee and everybody can see what everybody's been assigned to do.
Correct. So let me give you an example. My kids use Todoist, okay? And there is a project called Responsibilities, and they are both assigned, as well as my wife and myself. So the 4 of us could log in, look everything that is happening, but I can choose to write to my daughter if her responsibility is, for example, take the dishwasher out or set the table, okay, I can put, messages in there and decide, do I want her to be notified or not? For example, my son is young, so in the set the table, he needs to set the table at noon every day. It's part of his responsibilities. So in the note, it says the knife goes in the right and the fork goes in the left, okay? And he don't get a notification, but when he has doubt, he knows that he can go open his Todoist and look at that, and he will get that note that is enough for him to remember.
Interesting. Okay, so every time you write a note, everybody or each person isn't ding, ding, ding all the time.
No,
It's just
you need to choose who you are going to ding, or you can choose ding everybody, or you can choose ding nobody.
Okay, and in Remember the Milk, when you write a note to a person who you've assigned a task to, they get dinged. Okay.
Right, that person.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect. Pleasure, our pleasure. This is the reason we're doing this. So let's go to the next one, where now we show, an example of how we plan all this, and let's share a little bit more of the difference between one and the other. So Dr. Buck, all yours.
Yeah, so on the left-hand side, here's where you really get to look inside my brain. When Augusto and I decided to do this event, what you see there in the yellow is the first thing I put in Remember the Milk. Remember the Milk and Todoist comparison events have been presented and uploaded as YouTube and blog posts. It's a statement that's either true or false. When that statement becomes true, I can check it off, it's done. Until it's true, there's more work to do. Now, as you might imagine, there's some steps in there. In fact, there are 9 of them. And what you see right below it is what you would see if I clicked on that. Here's the task I just started brainstorming. And I've assigned each one a little date, and I can assign comments to any of those. And if I assign any of those to Augusto, they show up on his Remember the Milk, and we can leave comments back and forth.
Yeah, similar. I create the same thing, and you will see on both sides the red, the blue, and the gray. That's the priority that we assign. So same in Todoist. In Remember the Milk, red is the high priority, blue is the second one. In Todoist, it's red, orange, blue, and then gray. The one thing that I really like the way Todoist do it is when I assign a task, you will see on the right that it has Frank Buck and a couple of pictures, okay? So I can know when I look at that project, who is the responsible person for that task without me even needing to open anything. And that's something that I particularly enjoy about delegating things into Todoist versus what I experience when I do the same in Remember the Milk. I like to be open that and see who has the responsibility on everything, and everything has a responsibility assigned that way.
Yeah, and you also have those little pictures in Remember the Milk as well. When you open the task, here's a comment that Augusto's left. Well, there's Augusto's picture right beside it. Or something I have given to Augusto to do. His picture will be right beside it. So
we showed the picture early, but on the normal view you don't see it. You need to open the task again. It's not going to make you more effective, but it's something that I particularly enjoy. So let's go next to the smart list and the filters. And smart list and filters are really similar, are just a different way to approach the same problem. So let's get Dr. Buck to talk a little bit about the smart list before we go into the difference with the filters.
Yeah, and the smart list, it really goes back to search. And that's one of the things that makes any digital task list so much better than its paper alternatives from generations ago and decades ago. The ability to search for a term, search for a task, and there it is. Now, the smart list is something where Remember the Milk really shines. Think of it as like a saved search. It's got a little search window at the top where I can put the name of a task, but suppose I'm interested in a task that has a certain person's name, like maybe Bob, but also some other criteria that maybe it's Bob with a tag of calls. Let me give you one example in particular. Think of all the things that other people owe you. They borrowed your lawnmower, they borrowed books. It's Amazon who's supposed to send you a shipment. It's all these things that you're expecting to receive from other people. I put those on my list. Before I use tags, I would put the letters ETR as a part of the tag, part of the task name, and then I could search for ETR, and there's a list of everything everybody owes me. Now I have a tag called ETR. Anything anybody owes me, I just tag it ETR. So I could click my little button for ETR, and there's everything. But so often what I'm interested in are the things other people owe me, and the due date is coming up, say, within the next week. I don't want to see all the ETRs, just the ETRs from the next week. So what I can do is click on the little search to open up the box that you see, where I can say, I'm not interested in what's in the name, but I want the tag to be ETR, and I want the due date to be before a week from now. So I've run that search, but that's a lot of mouse clicks. Now all I have to do is click the little button that says Save as Smart List. It says, what do you want to name it? I could call it ETR. And now on the left-hand side of my screen, there are my little list of smart lists. There's one called ETR. Anytime I want to see what does anybody owe me that's coming up within the next week, one click, boom, it's there. And that's part of the free program. It's amazing. All right, and Augusto, filters on Todoist.
In the case of Todoist, it's similar. The filter is a search. It's a way to automate your search to make them repeatable. And one of the difference that I really enjoy with Remember the Milk, and I had an account of Remember the Milk 2008, and the interface is a lot more friendly, and the interface is a lot simpler. You know, which are the words, doesn't have, search the notes, the task, the due date. Todoist required you to write, a little bit of a query. They're difficult? No, they're not, but you need to understand what you're going to look and what are the different things that you can search to make it happen. So in that sense, Remember the Milk make it much easier for everybody to create this smart list or to create these searches than what Todoist does. I mean, if you have no knowledge of the queries, can you search on the web and find things? Yes, but it's a little bit more geeky, and I really enjoy in this comparison how simple it is on Remember the Milk. And so it's again another one of those difference, but as you can see, you can create a smart list, you can create the filters, and have them there, clicking them and it will come. It's just a matter of how simple or how much you want to tinker with this. The reality is the filters or the smart list in the Remember the Milk are way easier to configure than the filters on Todoist. That said, well, you don't tinker with the filters every day, or at least I don't. So after you figure it out one, you will be fine for a really long time. Mm-hmm. And then we come to...
And like you said, we could go back to that last slide for just a second. What this is showing you over on the left is this would be what the left-hand pane looks like. Here's tagged Smart List, and then one of the things is there's the ETR, and it's telling me right, without even clicking it, it's telling me that search is going to return one item. I've got one thing that over the next week somebody owes me. If I click on that link, it runs the search for me.
Yeah, and that was another thing I forgot to mention that is nice. When you look at those smart lists, they told you, okay, hey, there is a one item in there. In Todoist, you will not see how many items. That may be a good thing in case it is scary. So, but let's go to the add task via email. And this was one particular thing that for me is key. Okay, I receive enough tasks via email that this is critical for me. Um, before I go there, let me read. Ray saying in the chat, back to Katie's question earlier about task nodes, assigned task users don't notify the delegated contact as best I knew. I just tested and I'm not seeing a notification happening. Yeah. So the Remember the Milk, Ray's also a Remember the Milk user, and he don't see.
We were seeing that because Augusto and I tested that back and forth, and we were seeing the little dots. Yeah. But of course, one thing we had to make sure we had the right email address associated with.
The configuration on the notifications in Remember the Milk, it changed depending how you have them, what they allows you to do or not.
Yeah.
This is on task notes. The notes within the task.
Yes, I believe when we added a comment, I'm almost sure it was that the other person.
You may be right. It may have been on the task and not on the note, right?
Well, I have notifications turned off completely on my primary account, but on my demo account, I have them all turned on. And the assigned task contact, the assigned contact is not getting the notifications in the task notes, but it may just be me, but you can turn those notifications off. So yeah. I just wanted to clarify, you do have some granular notification controls there.
Yeah. So Katie, you can, and Ray used Remember the Milk. So, okay, let's go back to then add task via email. And this is where Dr. Buck was really excited when he got this email that says he was aware a grant giving you $500,000 for your program. But
I was doing
any of those emails.
Yeah, I was doing backflips when I got the email from Todoist that emailing into tasks is now part of the free plan, because that was the other thing that kept me from being able to really recommend the free plan of Todoist. This thing right here. Think of how many emails right now, for everybody who's out there listening, how many emails do you have sitting in your email inbox because they're reminders of things that you have to do? Like this one, you read the email and you go, wow, we got $500,000. Oh, I need to write a budget. There's my to-do. I need to write the budget. Now, for me, if it's something I can do right this minute, fine, I can do it, be done with it. If not, the place for this thing is over on Remember the Milk, where it becomes a part of my to-do list and I can work through it. This is the reason my inbox can get back to empty every day, because it doesn't have all these little halfway reminders of things to do. So with Remember the Milk, you get a little email address. They provide it to you, and anything sent to that email address automatically goes, it becomes a task in Remember the Milk. So what I do is I take that email address the first time, put it in my contacts as a new contact. It's called Remember Milk. So when I get this email, and Augusto, if you'll just go to the next slide so people will see what happens next. I just hit forward. I forward it to that little special Remember the Milk email address, and then change the subject line to whatever I want the task to read. Something like write the grant. And then the entire body of the email message, as you're going to see next, is going to wind up in the note section of that task. And so now I can get rid of the email totally. And then Augusto, tell us about.
So this is a couple of things that we do differently. In Todoist, you can decide to forward that email to your inbox, thing that I do often enough, or you can decide to send it directly to a project. So as you could see on my screen, I'm sending that email to two places, my inbox as well as directly inside of the project. And that has been really useful because there are emails that then I can create automated rules to go to certain places and get directly into where I want them to go. So I don't do it for all. Most of them go to the inbox, but there are certain things that I automate. For example, if I receive an email from Amazon, okay, that something was ordered, I don't need to get that. Don't need to go to the inbox. That can go directly to a project that says waiting for Amazon and create a task, and I can semi-automate that directly from the email. I don't need to reprocess that email. So that's something that is useful for me. So let's go back to now the other side. We receive the email now in Remember the Milk and Todoist. What are we doing with that?
All right, so I've now hit send. I go over to Remember the Milk. You see over on the left-hand side, the task, whatever was in the subject line becomes the name of the task. I click on it, the right-hand panel opens, and in the note section, date and time stamp is the entire body of the email message. So now I can give that a date that I want to do it. I can give it a priority that I want to do it. I can add any other notes to it, and it becomes part of my task list rather than sitting over there in email.
On my side, when I'm getting, I apologize, I'm right now testing what we were discussing on the notifications, and that's the reason I look distracted, because I wanted to test to give an answer to leave it in record before. So there is one thing that Todoist do that I really enjoy. And if you see my screen, you saw the email before, great news, you have been aware, blah, 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 blah. And then under that, it create an HTML version of that email.
Mm-hmm,
and that is beautiful, because I can click into that, it will open an HTML, and I have all the links and all the things. So if I get that email and I want to open that, the attachment is there in the comments, and I can continue building, but I don't need to go back to my email to search for that thing, hopefully ever. So, and this happened this week. I ordered something, it got in my email, I forwarded to the waiting for stuff, and it supposed to arrive on Monday, didn't arrive on Monday. So I just went to that, find the task, click on the HTML, click on the link, and it was really simple for me. Didn't need to go back to my email. So that's something that Todoist do that I really, really, really love. So let's go to the next slide, Dr. Buck. How can you define or find that email? If you just Remember the Milk or Todoist and you don't know how to get this email so you can start email things to yourself, how do you do that on Remember the Milk?
Okay, so on Remember the Milk, you create your account, and then in the upper right-hand corner, you're going to see that little cog. It's like you see there on the screen with a little drop-down arrow beside it. You click on that and go to your account settings, as you might just normally assume. And then one of the things that you're going to see in that list of things, it says account, password, etc. One of them says email task. You click on that. Now, you're going to see two, and you see the little box that has the blue rectangle in it. You can actually see two email addresses. One that's labeled it's so small I can't see it. Email inbox, I think, and then import email. You want the top one. You want the first one. In another session, we'll talk about what to do with that second one, but you want that first one that appears. Just take it, put it in your contacts as a new contact, and then that's what you're going to forward those emails to turn them into tasks.
Yeah, in the case of Todoist, you will go to the project, and on the right side, you will see three dots that you can see on the top corner. When you click on the three dots, then it gives you the option email to this project. Doesn't matter if it's the inbox or one of the projects, that's how they treat it. So if you do it in the inbox, it will just give you an inbox email, copy to the keyboard, and you will be able to work with that to select how you want to put labels, okay, to that email before they receive it, how you can set up to due dates or due dates and priorities. So you will be able, when you email that task, if you know a little bit about it, you will be able to define. So it's even that will be on the inbox as a task for you to organize, you can decide to think. So as I was sharing my Amazon email, I have one that goes to Amazon, okay, and what it is I write the due date when I'm supposed to receive this, okay, and the context waiting for, and or the label waiting for, and it goes. I don't need to see that email, process it again, and again, it is something that is powerful for me because that means I don't need to touch the email twice, but I know that on the day that I'm supposed to receive whatever that is, I will see that, I will see the email, I will see everything else. So Dr. Buck has mentioned today multiple times his criteria to recommend the digital task management. And we thought it was important to mention that as we show, there are many things we did not cover today that we want to see. If you guys have interest, we will be more than happy to. But we wanted to not leave this without sharing those tasks or those criteria that Dr. Buck and I use to recommend a digital task management. So, Dr. Buck?
They're what I call my 7 essentials. And 6 of these, I would have told you back in 2001 when I first went digital, put aside that paper planner. First of all, it's whatever task manager you choose, it's got to have the ability to give, for you to assign a date, a due date. When do I want to see that task again? There's so many people when I say, do you keep your tasks digitally? And they say, yes, I do. I say, well, how do you do it? And they say, well, I use that little yellow legal pad looking thing on my iPhone. And that's great for the grocery list for this afternoon. But where do you put the thing that you're going to need to do 2 weeks from Thursday? For, gosh, probably 40 years, I've used the old tickler file, learned it from my dad when I was about, I guess 8 years old or something, where any paper I want to see in the future, I put it in that file, I forget about it, and then on that particular date, there it is. And when I teach that to people, they say, that's great, but do you have something like that for all the digital stuff in your life? Well, yes, right there. When I can take a task and put a date on it and sort the list by date, it becomes just like the digital tickler file. So if I can't put a due date, I don't want to touch it. Second, repeating tasks. Think about all the things that you do every month, every year at the same time. I don't want to have to rethink those things. I want to be able to put it on the list one time, say it repeats whenever, and forget about it. If it doesn't have repeating tasks, I'm not interested in it. Third, the notes section, like we talked about tonight. Todoist didn't used to give it to you in the free plan. Therefore, I couldn't recommend it. Now they do. Having search, the ability to throw something in the little search window. Synchronization across all devices. If it's something that I have on my phone only, I'm not interested in typing everything with 2 thumbs on a piece of glass. No. If it's something that's on my computer, I'm not interested in that if it's there only, because when I get up from my computer, I've gotten up from my task list. I want it to sync everywhere. And both of these programs have a very nice, pretty, fully functional app on them. Number 6, we talked about communication with email, being able to email a task and handle it in your task list. And then the 7th one, voice input, the ability to just speak a task into your phone and it wind up in text, all typed out on your task list so that you can pull out your phone, talk, throw it back in your pocket. You earn the right to forget about it because it's on the list. And those are my 7 essentials. And Augusto, you're muted.
We needed to do that at least one time on every event, as everybody has experienced this. So I was saying, I agree with the 7, but I want to make a couple of clarifications. I have talked about personal productivity versus organizational productivity, and that's the reason I tend to work mostly with 3 applications. OmniFocus, that is the personal productivity to organizational productivity is more a spectrum than a box. So when I said, when you are, yourself, especially as a small business, OmniFocus is incredible. When you are going to start sharing task projects, I tend to recommend to do it. And when you want a more pure organizational productivity environment, then Notesby Teams is what I tend to recommend. So depending where you are, depending what I tend to recommend. The second thing is, for me, it's important not only that they synchronize across all the device, but that they have powerful mobile apps. Why? Because more people spend more time on their mobile than any other device. You're moving around. You don't carry your laptop or your desktop. You carry your phone. So if the app doesn't allow you to be effective there, it doesn't work. I agree with Dr. Buck. Todoist has a really powerful app. I don't do the day-to-day and remember the milk, but he does. So I take his word for it. This other part is the notes section. For me, it's important to have notes on the project level as well as the task level. On the project level, I tend to have organization, what is a successful outcome? What are the things that belong to the project regardless of the task? And I like to have that distinction. And finally, voice input is important, but more and more I want to have the integration with Mrs. A, Mr. G, or Mrs. S, okay? Because I want to be able to be anywhere in my house. It's Mrs. A, and I want to be able to go anywhere and say, Mrs. A, remind me this in Todoist, and they do it. And the same thing with Google or Siri. So what's next? Again, if you guys find this useful, we are happy to go and show session 2, 3, 4. We thought about session 2, using the Remember the Milk on that sharing, show more of that sharing. What happened with those? Session 3 talks about templates and repeated items. Session 4, labels and calendars things. So if you're watching this live or you're watching this in the recorded version, leave us a note if you are interested, and we're happy to schedule this. If there's anything that we are not covering on there, let us know, because we are happy to cover those and add that, or even just add that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Final comments, Dr.
Anybody else that's doing this kind of compare contrast thing, especially between these two programs? Like Ray said, you're asking me if I want. Yeah, Ray's definitely a fan of Remember the Milk.
Well, and that is the goal. If it's useful, please let us know. We will love to continue. So, any final comments, Dr. Buck?
The biggest thing, I think the biggest takeaway from tonight and the other sessions that we'll do is the value of having a digital task list. We live in a world where so much comes to us digitally. To me, it just makes sense to be able to take digital information and keep it digital. You can't go wrong with either one of these pieces of software.
Yeah, and it was, for me, was an interesting comparison to see the strengths and the difference between one and the other. And our goal was not to say one was better than the other, but shows you what is your style. The best task management system is like the camera, is the one that you use. The best camera in the world is the one that you use. And that's the reason this is, for most people, the best camera they have.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
It's the phone they have on their pocket, the camera they have on the pocket, and they can do. So again, thank you for your time. Before we leave, is there any question that we have not covered today, or that you still have that you want to ask?
Yeah, we wanted to leave a few minutes open for questions that anybody has. So go ahead and.
So, by the way, did you get the notification for the item that you shared with me? So we're talking about the bell notification in the top right-hand corner. I don't believe task notes notify anybody. Yeah, they show you an icon next to the task, but you don't get a notification for task notes.
Yeah.
Okay. So you can see what each other has left, but you don't necessarily get a notification when that's left. You definitely get a notification when a task is delegated.
Right. If someone has shared a list, someone has shared a list or assigned a task, then you will get a notification. Otherwise, you don't get any other notifications. And that's exactly how I like it. I don't want.
We got too many people notifying us about stuff as it is.
Yeah, I don't want that to be Slack. It's not Slack. Yeah. It's for purposes of being able to understand what's going on in the system. And remember, the Milk is a task manager. It's not a project manager. And so I think leaving it to personal task management is exactly where it should stay. So just in case anybody from Remember the Milk watches this sometime in the future, do not change that aspect. But thanks, guys. This is great.
Let's see. We have a question tracking these you're responsible for. Some things are open projects and where the project stands. When to use a task manager and when to use a note-taking app. Boy, this could be a whole session in itself. I'll go first on that. I tend to, anything that's action related, I tend to think of Remember the Milk as the place for the actions, the to-dos. And Evernote, which I love, that's a whole nother session. That's for the reference information. And of course, both of those wonderful applications with the things they do are kind of tending to blur the lines, but that's more or less where I draw the line. If it's something to do, it goes in Remember the Milk. If it's reference information, a lot of times it's reference for that task, and there'll be a link over to that note in Evernote, but that's sort of where I make the distinction.
Yeah, my question is, is this a note, a comment that is actionable or related to the action, or I additionally want to keep it as a reference? So for example, you send me information of where is this, and I wanted to keep it for later, I just file it additionally. But one of the advantages on Todoist, and I'm going to assume the same is on Remember the Milk, is that when a project is done and I archive it, I don't delete it, it's archived. So it may not be using memory on the device, but I can go to the web and find it. So even on some of these notes that were there and suddenly they're not, I can go back, find the note if I missed to copy that to my note-taking app. So I wish to tell you there is a clear answer on this is the answer for that. No, when it's referenced and where it's not, or at least I don't have it. But in my criteria is this information that somebody shared with me, I'm going to reference multiple times. If I do, then I tend to copy to the note-taking app. If I don't, then stay and leave it in there.
Good. Boy, I love this next question. In fact, I'm going to do a YouTube video on that very thing. How do you manage a list of your projects in Remember the Milk? All right, here's how I do it very, very quickly. Again, I'll do an extended video. But for me, a project is a task that has subtasks. I word it as a statement that's either true or false. So if it's a project, it's going to start with a noun. And then what I do is in Remember the Milk, it will show up as, it has this many subtasks. And so what I've done is I've structured a SMART list, called it Projects This Week. And a project this week is defined as a task that has subtasks and a due date that's within the next week. And so I have a SMART list. So all I have to do is click on that SMART list, and there are all of those projects, tasks that have subtasks, and the due date for that task is within the next week. And then I have another SMART list to give me projects that are coming up within the next month, and then things that are coming up after that. So again, I'm going to make a YouTube video, and I think that's going to be a very significant one. But thank you for the question. And
I will add it to Personal Productivity Club if Dr. Buck shared with us, that I'm sure he will. Mm-hmm. And the other thing that is important to refer, and I went back to the slide, is the way you name the projects. And that is important. And I wanted to use the opportunity to go back to there. Dr. Buck, make it a statement, true or false. If it's true, stay. If it's false. So in his example was, Remember the Milk and Todoist comparison event has been presented and updated and in YouTube and blog posts. So if he will look at this project right now, this project has been presented, but has not been yet uploaded to YouTube or the blog post. So his project will not be done yet.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. All right, other questions tonight? Let's see, how do you know what projects they're associated? Okay, good question. How do you know that the subtasks, what projects they're associated with? You might have noticed on any of the little subtasks, it had this little upward arrow. So as I'm looking at my list, anything with that little upward arrow is a subtask. If I click on it, it immediately brings up the entire project. I can see all of the other subtasks and that parent task along with all of the notes. And likewise, if I'm looking at my list and I see that project that has shown up, if I click on it, I see all of the subtasks. So my little kind of rule of thumb is, if I see a subtask, click to take me to the whole project. If I see a project that has subtasks, click on it to see what all of the subtasks are. So it's sort of like that page you had in the back of your Franklin planner many years ago, where all of the tasks for all the subtasks for that project were back there, and you were going back and referencing that page as you were working on that project.
Yeah, in Todoist, I like the fact that the task at the bottom right has the project that is associated with it. But I want to thank you. I want to be respectful of your time, and we're in the top of the hour.
Absolutely, so. We are at the top of the hour. Thank you for being with us tonight. To find out more about me, the keys to the kingdom, it's frankbuck.org. Hop on my mailing list. One of the things that you'll get is a little Remember the Milk ebook to show you how to set everything else, how to set everything up. It's been kind of interesting here. We're in the middle of a major thunderstorm. And in fact, Augusto and I were talking beforehand, what would happen if I lost an internet connection or if we lost electricity? So that has been in our favor. And the two Shetland sheepdogs, the one I was worried about a little bit hadn't opened her mouth. The other one has decided to become a little bit mouthy, but you know, that's the way things are. But you know, they're important in our household. But thanks, everybody. And Augusto, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. You can find me on Productivity Voice and find more about me. My email, it's there and it's going to be there. And without anything else, thank you very much. And we are going to post this video in Personal Productivity Club. Dr. Buck is also going to post it in his channel. And again, let us know what else we can do. Bring the second session. I think that based on the feedback I read on the chat, people will enjoy that second. So we will be more than happy to start planning for that second, posted in Frank Buck, my webpage, as well as Personal Productivity Club. And without further ado, thank you very much and have a great day, rest of the day.